Wow, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. As you can see, you have a lot of fans in Barcelona.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm having a great time.
So we're gonna focus because you've written so much, you've produced a lot, you've also directed. So we had to like choose a couple of things to focus on. So we chose because this festival is focusing on TV shows. We decided to focus on 6 Feet Under and True Blood. So we're gonna show a clip from 6 Feet Under that I think it's a great summary of the show first. It's been 20 years since the ending of 6 Feet Under.
I know, isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. And it still feels so contemporary, and it feels more bold and more risk-taking than a lot of shows being made today.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if this would get made today because people might think the subject matter was too dicey or it wasn't big enough, or I wonder.
And we were discussing before, like they feel like right now everything needs to happen in the pilot, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And what's great about this show is how their character arcs unfold in such a complex and rich way, and they are long and you have time to be with them.
I think that's one of the benefits of doing a television series over doing a film, because you have the time and the space to allow things to unfold at a more natural pace, and if you have 63 hours you have to fill, then you can your characters can actually go through changes that last, and the way that we as human beings do. So I'm a big fan of series.
And I think that's what allows these characters to feel like family to us. For me, it's the first time I watched the show and the characters really felt like family, in the sense that I would love them one day and hate them the other day. But I would never stop loving them because they felt like family, but
Yes.
I could be so frustrated with them, and I had never felt like this before with characters. And
Part of it, I think, also is that we usually watch TV series in our own homes. So it's almost like they're there with you in your house. So they do start to feel like family, and you do start to feel a connection with them that maybe you don't feel with Superman or somebody who's getting eaten by dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
you can really relate to the characters in 6 Feet Under.
Yeah.
I feel they could be. I feel like Claire could be my sister. I feel like Nate could be my brother. I kind of wish they were. But I wanted to ask you about writing characters, because I feel like you have such talent for writing characters and for writing them in a way that they feel flawed and complex and tridimensional, and they can always surprise you, but they always feel consistent. How did you approach, because you told me that the idea, let's start with the idea of 6 Feet Under was pitched to you.
Yes. Yeah. After American Beauty came out, a lot of people wanted to meet with me, and I met with Carolyn Strauss, who was the head of original programming at HBO at the time, and during our lunch, she said to me, I've always wanted to do a show about a family-run funeral home. And something in my head just went click. I get that. I understand that. Because when I was a kid, there was a period where a lot of people in my family died. So I spent a lot of time in funeral homes, and I was very aware of the kind of surreal nature of those spaces. And it was kind of like a weird limbo between life and death. So I could see the show when it came, and then I went home for Christmas from LA, and I just wrote the pilot. I don't really think consciously about this character and what is their history and what are their defining characteristics. It happens on a more subconscious level, and then I kind of become aware of it. That may just be a rationalization for being undisciplined. I don't know, but it's more of a organic, subconscious process. Of course, all of them have a little bit of me in them, so I can so I can empathize with them. All of them have things, from people in my life, over the past 60 years. I think that's where they come from. And also, I have to say, you know, a lot of people say, how did you come up with this show, and how did you? I had 6 other writers that I worked with, and they were very, very skillful and very talented, and they brought all of their history and their knowledge and their life experience to the room. So a lot of times, things that I might get complimented for, I didn't do. So I just want to make sure that's understood.
So the power of collaboration, but at the same time, I feel the show is so coherent, like every single thing. That's what I wanted to ask you about. How did you deal with having a lot of people involved in the writer's room and the directing of the episodes, and making sure that the show has such a clear vision and tone? Because the tone of the show is so specific.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I did back in the day, people would, you know, writers would have writing samples, and they were usually episodes of shows that already existed.
That they would write on spec.
They would write a Sopranos episode on a
okay.
spec, and that would be their writing sample.
Mm-hmm.
I only read original work. I only read original pilots or screenplays, sometimes even short stories, because I wanted to get a sense of, does this writer's voice fit with the show, or is it? And if it does, then that's somebody I'm going to hire. Because, and the same thing with directors, and the same thing, you want to bring in people whose sensibility is in the same ballpark as the sensibility of the show, so that things happen organically, and you maintain the tone and the feel of the show throughout the 5 years. Because I can't do it all myself, because I'm in the writer's room working on the next episode. I'm in editing, working on the last episode, you know. So I don't have time to be on set every day. But what I would do is I would take the writer of that episode and send them down to the stage to be the on-set producer. And they felt a sort of ownership over their episode, and that seems to be a process that really worked. It made people invested in a way that maybe they might not have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You gave them responsibility.
Yeah, and I did give them the responsibility, and a lot of that was so that I would have to work less. You know, I'll be honest.
But I think we have to clarify that it was this all happened at a time where this idea of the showrunner, the author, was not that common. This idea of like being an author with a voice running a show. You were one of the first ones.
Right.
How did you protect this? You know, was it easy for you to occupy this space, to have this space, this creative space?
Well, I had never worked on a single camera show before. I had only written plays and worked on 4-camera sitcoms, which is like filmed theater, because the cameras are on the stage with the actors as they act. So this was my first experience doing a single camera show. In a lot of ways, 6 Feet Under for me was film school, because I didn't go to film school. And in terms of being the showrunner, it just sort of happened. It's just sort of like, okay, I'm the guy who's in charge of the tone and the overall feel and where the story goes. But I'm a big collaborator. I believe in collaboration a lot, because you know, me sitting in a room with 6 other writers, they're going to come up with ideas that I don't have, and some of them are going to be better than the ideas that I have. So I just always focused on, if it makes it better, do it. And also, I tried to surround myself with people who not only were similar in sensibility to the sensibility of the show, but who were really, really good at what they did. You know, designers, cinematographers, composers. And then I would just try to stay out of their way and let them do what they do. And if I saw something veering off, I would step in. But for the most part, I just really oversaw this big collaboration in terms of Was I aware that I was one of the first showrunners? No, I didn't really think of that. I was so focused on the work. And we were very fortunate, I think, in that we shot and finished the entire first season before it ever aired. So we didn't have to worry about, oh, we got bad reviews, or these people on the internet said that they don't like this.
That's
and
amazing.
we were able to bypass all of that just because it wasn't out there yet, which was really fortuitous for us, I think.
Yeah, because I guess this gives you a lot of freedom.
A lot of freedom.
Not to be subjected to what the audience is reacting to constantly, which is something that happens right now a lot. You know, like a show will get canceled if it doesn't work by episode 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in terms of the actors, because I feel like what you're talking about is almost like a casting process, that you're casting your co-writers and the directors. I guess it's the same. In terms of the actors, did you also give them the space to create a little bit within their characters?
Absolutely. I mean, when you cast, you want to. You cast somebody that you feel like I can see the character in this person. So you don't have to worry about them having to do too much to make themselves different or use different accents or create some sort of physical something. You cast somebody who you can see the character in, and then you let them do what they do. And gradually, they're just as responsible as myself and the other writers were in terms of making that character who they are. They bring so much to it. And casting for me is a huge important piece of the puzzle, because if you get the right cast and you believe in these people as the characters and they believe in themselves as the characters, you've got a big head start.
Beautiful. I think the show has this incredible combination of amazing characters and incredible actors.
Yes.
Which is so hard to find. Did they know where their characters were going to? Did they have a sense of like what their characters how their characters were going to evolve at the beginning?
No, I didn't have that sense. When I wrote the pilot, I just tried to open as many doors as I possibly could. I knew that David's arc was going to involve him coming out of the closet to himself and then to the world. But in terms of the other characters, I didn't know. I mean, I knew who they were, but I didn't know where it was going to go. So yeah, they didn't know either. But they seemed to be okay with that, you know?
Because it's amazing. No, because everything feels like so coherent. I think it would be a great moment to show the second clip of there's a conversation between Claire and Ruth at the end of the show that I think it's really amazing. It's such a beautiful scene, and when you watch it, you're like, wow, these characters change so much from the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
This could never happen. Like, at the beginning of the show, I always have this feeling that Ruth kind of resents her children when they make decisions that are selfish. And here she is telling her, go.
Yeah, she's being really selfless in that moment.
And it feels so satisfying.
Yeah.
Right?
That was a little bit of an homage to my mom, because when my father died, I was right on the verge of leaving for college, and my aunt took me aside and said, I really think you should stay here, and so that your mom won't be alone, and you should take care of her. And I thought, well, I guess I should. And I had a similar scene like that with my mom, where she said no. And so that was always such an act of selflessness on her part that when it came time to write these final episodes, it felt really organic to put the same thing in the show.
It's really beautiful. And at the same time, there's this moment when Claire says, I would stay here for you.
Yeah.
It's so important for Ruth.
Yeah.
She needs to hear that.
Yeah.
It's almost as if she didn't expect it.
Yeah, exactly. And she's surprised,
Yeah.
you know, and shocked by that. And I think that surprise and that shock is sort of what helps put her over the edge of saying, no, take care of yourself.
How do you approach writing scenes? Because this scene feels so, it has like a very clear turning point. It has this reversal of expectations. It has everything that a great scene should have if you read like a screenwriting book, and at the same time it feels so organic. Is it also something that happens kind of subconsciously? Do you approach scenes with a very clear plan?
Well, we have outlines for 6 Feet Under. We would have an outline for every episode, and so you would know what was happening in the scenes and what were the beats that you had to hit. But in terms of making it personal, making it really organic for each particular character, because they all had different voices. Yeah, you pay attention to that, but in terms of what actually happens within the scene, that would all be worked out in the writer's room with the entire writing staff. We broke each episode and we outlined each episode as a group. With, you know, of course, with me having veto power if I felt like something wasn't right. And again, that helped me as a writer in that I would get an outline and there would be things in there that came from other writers, their own life experience, their own history, and I would have that, which maybe I might not have come up with on my own, you know. So I hope I answered your question.
No, yeah, it's absolutely. So you worked with beat sheets. Because I'm very curious to understand how the writers' room worked. How long did you work on like a season, for example?
We usually had around 8 weeks of pre-production before we started shooting, 8 to 10 weeks. And we would spend the first 2 weeks mapping out the arc of the season. We had a dry erase board with columns on it, and this would be Nate, and these are the things that would happen to Nate, and this would be David, and these are the things that are going to happen to David. And then once we got that in a place where we all felt good with it, by the way, it always changed by the end of the season because things happened organically where you're like, well, that doesn't work anymore. Then we would start doing individual episodes and outline them. And again, we outlined them as a group because 7 minds are better than 1. 7 life experiences and histories are better than 1. And then once we had an outline, the writer of that episode would go off and write a first draft. And then that would come in. We would give notes as a group. With me having veto power, they would go off and write a second draft, and that would come in. And then I would do a pass on it if necessary. A lot of times it wasn't, and nothing made me happier than getting a draft where I didn't have to rewrite it extensively because I thought, oh, I get to have a life this weekend. And then it would go to the network, and they would give us their notes, which were on this show very, very minimal. And then we would start pre-production for that episode.
So you got a lot of creative freedom from the network.
A lot.
That's incredible.
On both 6 Feet Under and True Blood, they were basically hands off.
That's incredible.
It is
that
incredible.
would never happen today.
I know. I yearn for those days because that doesn't happen anymore.
And I once heard from hearing David Chase talk that he would change writers almost every season. Would you would you change writers? Would you introduce new writers? Was it the same writers?
I let go of writers that weren't measuring up, that I felt like we could do better than, just in terms of they weren't hitting the right note with the episodes that they wrote. But for the most part, a lot of the writers were there from the beginning. Because they knew the show, they knew the history, they knew everything, and I felt really comfortable working with them. We knew what the dynamic in the room was. We didn't have to work that out. Because a lot of times you put a bunch of writers in a room, And writers are crazy. And you put them it takes a while for the social/family dynamic to work itself out. And I didn't want to do that every season. And if they had written great episodes and produced great episodes, of course I'm going to bring them back.
It really does feel like a family.
It was.
That's beautiful.
It was.
It makes a lot of sense with the show because it really is. They are family. You feel this family, this feeling, and I feel like there were so many good decisions made that kind of like helped that happen. And I guess that's one of them, having this like little family in the writers' room.
Yeah, a lot of people stayed with it from the very beginning. Not just the writers, but all the department heads, designers, cinematographers. Everybody really, we lucked out. Everybody really loved what we were doing and didn't want to go anywhere else.
That's amazing.
So those were 5 charmed years.
You know what, I love to hear this because sometimes it feels like the film sets or even writer's room are places where there's this authority and there's a lot of pressure and it's hard to work in there. And when I hear you speak, it feels like everything that there was this sense of calm and love and a place that felt safe for people to create, and I think that's the best environment. I
think so too. I think empowering people and giving them ownership over the work that they're doing makes them do better work. I've never been in a situation where anybody was abusive or yelling or bullying and that making the work better. And for me, it was always about the work, the show. The show is the most important thing, more important than me, more important than the other writers, more important than anybody who worked on the show. The show was what we were constantly trying to make as good as it could be. And we had such a great group of people that everybody was on the same page.
You really feel that in the show.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the characters and going to the end of the show, when did you realize that you were going to kill Nate? That was one of the hardest television moments of my life.
Yeah. We knew that the 5th season was the last season, and we knew we were going to have to end the show. And everybody was saying, like, well, it's obvious, the show started with Nate, it needs to end with him. And his whole struggle throughout the series has been trying to appreciate and enjoy life in the moment. So at first we started thinking he'll die in the last episode, but then we thought, no, he needs to die a little earlier so that we can see the family respond.
And the grief that it's
yeah,
such an
and the
important
grief
thing.
that they went through. And then we were saying, well, okay, but Nate's dead. Then we have 3 or 4 episodes of people grieving. What do we do now? And somebody in the writer's room, I wish I could remember who it was because it was not me, said, we should just kill everybody. And that's exactly what happened. We all started laughing like, ha, ha, ha. And, but then I thought about it and I thought, of course we should be with each character at the moment of their death. That's so obvious. How come we didn't think of it to begin with? Because there's really no other way to end this show, I don't think.
Such a brilliant idea, and of course this became one of the most famous endings of a show ever. We were just discussing before that there's this quote from Billy Wilder that is quoting Aristotle that it says that endings should feel surprising and inevitable. And this ending feels exactly like that. I mean, death is inevitable.
Absolutely, yep.
But at the same
time... Death and taxes.
But at the same time, it is very surprising and so refreshing, like we've never seen.
Because you didn't expect it.
No.
No.
Not at all.
Especially after Nate died, you thought, okay, well, that's the death. But then once you realize, oh my God, it's going to happen to every single one of them.
Yeah.
It's, I cried when I wrote it, and I cried when we were editing it, and there was a lot of grieving going on within the production staff and crew, because we were grieving what had basically been our family for 5 years and letting go of that. So that sort of seeped into the show as well, I think.
I think everyone in this room cried with the ending of 6 Feet Under. It was impossible not to cry. And at the same time, it's crazy because it's the first time when I saw death being treated in a show or film or ever in a way that, of course, it's sad, but at the same time, it's so many more things. There are so many more aspects of death. There's a spiritual thing going on. Do you consider yourself like a spiritual writer?
I do. I'm a spiritual person. If I had to label myself in terms of different kinds of spirituality, I would have to say Buddhism is the one that makes the most sense to me. But I do think about those things, and they're important in my own life, and so I think they find their way into the work. Hopefully in a way that's not too obtrusive or anything, or doesn't draw much attention to itself. But yeah, I would say, I think one thing that happens to me when I write is that I need to get inside each character and hopefully have an understanding of why they do what they do, and if they're doing something that's malevolent or evil or whatever, that usually comes from pain and fear. And so part of Buddhism is trying to be compassionate with every person and every living creature that you encounter. And so I think as a writer, I try to do that with the characters. So in that sense, I would say, yeah, I guess I'm a spiritual writer, but I don't think that I write about spirituality per se, or I'm not aware of it, if I do.
But you really feel this compassion in the show, because even when they are making bad choices, which of course is, it's important that characters make bad choices. I think it's something that we forget sometimes as writers, that characters need to make bad choices in order to have a show.
Absolutely.
But when they make these bad choices, you're still with them. You understand where this is coming from, because you understand their wounds so much. And this is, I think, what's the greatest thing about the show. But I want to talk about vampires now. Okay. So the big question is, you go from talking about mortal people to talk about immortal people. Yeah. Like, how did you end up writing True Blood? What excited you about writing this show about vampires? Because it's based on this.
It's based on a series of books. Yeah. I was early for a doctor's appointment, and I was killing time in a Barnes & Noble bookstore, and I was just walking up and down the aisles looking at books, and I saw this one book that was titled Dead Before Dark, and then the tagline was, maybe having a vampire for a boyfriend wasn't such a good idea. And that made me laugh, and so I bought it. It's a thin little book, and I read it. And it was just so much fun, And at that time, there were 4 books in the series. I got them immediately and just devoured them. And I thought, I think this would make a great TV show. And so I got in touch with the author, and I said, can I option this to turn it into a show? And she said yes, and the lawyers worked things out for however many months that took, or always takes. And then I wrote 3 episodes just on my own, because that's just the way that I worked back then, when you could actually write a spec episode and people would buy them and make them. And then I went to HBO and I said, what do you think of this show? And they said, oh, we already have a vampire show in development. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'll take it to Showtime or somewhere else. And they were like, no, 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 no. You can't do that because you're part of the HBO DNA. And I was like, okay, whatever, but you have a vampire show. You're not going to do 2 vampire shows. And they eventually ended up killing the other show.
Wow.
Which I felt really bad about for the guy that had created that show, and I felt really terrible.
I'm sure he made other stuff.
But so then we had the 3 episodes, and they said, let's make a pilot, and we made a pilot. And then when I made the 6 Feet Under pilot, I gave it to them on a Friday, and on Monday they called and they said, this show's greenlit, let's do it. True Blood, I gave them the pilot, and they waited months.
That's so nerve-wracking.
Because they had never done a show like that. They had never done a genre show. You know, this was before Game of Thrones. And so everything they had done had been sort of prestige, family, you know, and they had never done anything as crazy as a vampire show. But then eventually they called and they said, okay, we're going to do it. You know, I had given up. I thought, well, I got to find something else to work on. And they called and they said, let's do it. And Chris Albrecht, who was the head of original programming, said, okay, just in one sentence, tell me what this show is about.
What did you say?
And I thought, I don't know. It's about vampires. What are you talking about? But he wanted some sort of sentence, so I said, it's about the terrors of intimacy.
Wow.
Which I just completely pulled out of my ass. And it worked. You know, he said, oh, okay, all right, we'll do it.
That's amazing. I think this is a great moment to show our first clip of True Blood. It became a huge hit, True Blood.
It did. It became
it's so much fun.
Yeah, I guess. I never expected that to happen, but it did.
The thing is, you were saying it's a show about vampires, but it's so much more. As you see in this scene, it's so political. And the social commentary is huge. There's this whole thing, I mean, the metaphor, of course, of the outsiders and the people who don't have the same rights. Right now, in the US, it would also be like a huge metaphor for what is
absolutely,
happening. Yeah. That's why it's still so relevant in a way. And I think the show manages to be fun and pulp and camp and sexy and oh my God, the hot vampires and you know, there's so much going on. But at the same time, it has this depth.
Yeah.
It's not shallow. It doesn't feel shallow.
Right.
And I think that's why you can watch so many seasons. And at the same time, we were, as we were discussing before, I feel like you also take your time to draw the character arcs. Like you discover Suki's true nature in episode 3, in season 3.
Yeah.
So you knew you were going to have this time.
I have to give, tip my hat to Charlaine Harris, who wrote the books, because that happened in the books. Suki wasn't revealed as being a fairy until a later book, and I was like, oh, wow, and learning about that and what it meant and why her blood was so delicious to vampires and blah, blah, blah. So having a series of books to sort of follow was really helpful. And they're little books, but we made each book a season. So we could fill out the characters and come up with other stuff. But again, yeah, you're right. You have the time to really tell this. In terms of True Blood, I feel like it's like a big fantasy novel, that just goes on and on and on and keeps introducing new, interesting characters. But yeah, you have the time. You have the time and the space to do it.
You hadn't worked that much with genre before. Maybe it was the first time that you were working with genre. did you find it liberating?
Absolutely. You know, 6 Feet Under, as much fun as we had and as much humor there is in the show, after 5 years, I sort of felt like I'd been peering into the abyss, you know, for a long time. And I just wanted to do something that was more escapist. Not necessarily escapist for the audience, but for me. And it was such a new world of genre and vampires and ending every episode on a big cliffhanger. I felt like I was, you know, I was learning a lot as I went, which always makes something worthwhile. Yeah, it was super fun. It was really. I kept thinking, I shouldn't be having this much fun, but I am.
I think we were having the same fun
Yeah,
watching it.
Exactly.
You feel it. You feel you were having fun doing it. I feel like it's something you can see, you can perceive as an audience.
Yeah. Again, it was the same as it was with 6 Feet Under. Everybody working on the show was having fun, was having a blast, and I think you're right. That sort of, you can see it in the show.
And as you were casting for this show, in terms of, for example, the writers, did you want writers who had already worked in genre, or you didn't care that much about that?
I did. I read a lot of scripts. Some of them weren't necessarily genre scripts, but they had kind of a heightened absurdist feel to them, and yet at the same time were grounded enough that it felt like it didn't feel like completely off the wall. I'm trying to remember what I read when I was hiring. I read a short story. I read a couple of short stories. I read a play that was about time travel, so that, I guess that counts. But again, it was just looking for voices that felt similar to the voice of the show, what I've wanted the voice of the show to be.
And the show has such a specific tone and such a specific sonority, like it sounds in a specific way, and I think that's very important. How did you find the tone of the show? Because it is, I haven't seen that many shows that have this mixture of like humor, blood, it's horror sometimes, and then it's very sexy. It has all these like heightened aspects that are really hard to balance.
A lot of that was in the book. You know, it was, the book was basically a romance between Bill and Sookie, but there was also violence, and there was also frightening, you know, moments, and like her grandmother gets murdered, and there's a serial killer in town, and that was all in the book, in the books. Tonally, I think it was just so much fun to write in that tone that things got a little heightened, maybe more than they were in the books. But we had to be careful to sort of walk the line of not veering too much into camp or making things so over the top that they were hard to believe. And I'm sure we failed a couple of times. But tonally, it was sort of inherent in the material, the source material.
I think the great thing, what anchors the show and makes it possible for the tone to go to all these places, is that characters, again, feel so coherent.
Yeah.
And they feel like, you feel that they are suffering. They can be vampires, but you are with them suffering, or they can be, you know. It feels like you relate to their wounds and to everything that's happening to them. So I see you in the show, in the characters, in the complexity of the characters.
I feel like you always have to care about the characters. A lot of times I'll watch a show and like 10 minutes in, I'm like, I don't care about these people. And then I, you know, turn it off and try to find something else. I don't know what that thing is that makes you care about people. Some actors just have a kind of charisma where you do. But for me, the way that I can contribute is to through the writing, give them something that one can empathize with and maybe even sympathize with.
I feel like you understand their wounds so much.
Yeah.
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 It's really beautiful. I think we're gonna open it up to questions, but I have one last question. It's about the future, because I think we're now at a very complex political time, especially in the U.S., and I think the industry is also at a difficult time.
Yes.
Well, maybe a question about the present and then about the future. But in the present, how do you see the industry right now? Because you keep telling me that it would be impossible to make these shows nowadays.
Well, they are rebooting True Blood because they can't do anything that they haven't done before.
They're rebooting everything.
It's been frustrating for me within the industry because things have changed so much. I spent the last 5 years developing 2 different series that I hope to get on the air, that I had written scripts for, had actors attached, and they just passed. In one case, we were right at the point of being greenlit, and then the management structure of that company changed, and the new person came in and went, I don't care for this. And so gone, 3 years of work gone. It's difficult to, I've had a hard time getting things off the ground now instead of just writing a script and giving it to somebody, because I feel like a script tells you what the tone of it is and tells you what the characters are and tells you what the show is. They want a Bible and they want to know where is it going to end, and they want to be giving notes on everything, you know, throughout that process. And so the last time I pitched a show and it didn't go anywhere, I thought, okay, I've just spent 5 years of my life and nothing has come of it. I'm going to take this series idea and I'm going to adapt it into a book. I don't have to wait for permission. I don't have 16 people looking over my shoulder saying, you know, are you sure about that? Maybe you should do this instead. And so that's what I've been doing, and it's actually been really, really energizing because it takes me out of my comfort zone, forces me to learn how to write in a different medium, and it's been really fun. So I'll try that and see what happens.
I think this answers my last question, which was, what are you excited about? Because I feel sometimes we talk so much about the bad things that are happening and all of this, and I think there's also probably reasons to be hopeful and to be excited about. So at least we are very excited to read your book. I think everyone here would be super excited to read your book.
What am I excited about?
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about the results of the elections in America this week because it's been really hard living there and waking up every morning and going, what has that fucking lunatic done today that I'm not going to be able to not know? It's going to come at me from somewhere. And also, just a lot of what's happening in America is really, really, really tragic and cruel. And it's good to see what happened in the elections this week, as thinking maybe people are beginning to see the light. Maybe there is hope.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So we're gonna open it up to questions. Just raise your hand, and I think we have a microphone that can go around. We have 2 questions.
I can't see anything.
Hi, yes, here. Going back to 6 Feet Under, I just wanted to ask you about the beginnings, obviously, like who came up with the amazing ideas of starting each episode killing someone in the most creative way, and how did you go about coming up with so many different ways to die in the writer's room?
Well, in the pilot, Nathaniel dies at the beginning, and when the show got greenlit and I started to write a second episode, it just felt right because it gave it. First of all, it was a great way to open the show. It's a little bit of an homage to the movie Jaws, where it starts with somebody getting eaten by a shark, and then you get to the characters in the story. It just became obvious that if you have a dead body, it's going to have to go through the funeral home. They're going to have to deal with it and embalm it and deal with the people, the survivors. And we can build the show around that. In terms of coming up with different ones, some of them came from the news. There was a website called the Darwin website, which was about really stupid ways that people have died. We did sort of look to that as inspiration. Eventually, it became clear that everybody knew somebody was going to die at the beginning of the episode. So we had to do a little bit of a mislead, like a guy turns on the gas on his stove, but neglects to light it because he gets a phone call, and you think, oh, his house is going to blow up. But no, on the other end of the phone call is somebody calling because there's a mass shooting taking place somewhere. So we started to try to do a little bit of a mislead. But we had what we called the bank, the death bank, which was a file kept by our writer's assistant of different ways that because people would come in and they'd go, I thought of a great way for somebody to die. It doesn't work for this episode, but blah, blah, blah. And it would go in the death bank.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry.
Oh,
Go for it.
thanks. I was just wondering on the writing process. You mentioned that you were happy to have a life on the weekend, but how, as a rule of thumb, how many times did you end up writing an episode by yourself? Was it your own pick, your own choices? I'd like to write this one myself, or was it more the repair work, or you seeing that this one wasn't working? I have to take it on. I was just wondering, rule of thumb of the whole series. Were there even any that you wrote all by yourself?
Yes. What we would do when we broke the season is then I had 7 writers, so I would just ask I would ask them to come into my office and tell me which episode they wanted, 1 through 7. And miraculously, it usually worked out that everybody got the episode that they wanted. And I would take the one that nobody chose, because I figured, well, that's my job, I'll do that.
How selfless.
There were instances, especially the first couple of seasons, where the writers who didn't work out that I had to let go would turn in drafts that I had to pretty significantly rewrite. But in terms of writing a show from scratch, I believe I did it maybe 9 times. I think 9 of the episodes were written first draft by me. I'm not sure about that.
That's not too much then. Yeah, you did have a life.
It was important to me to have a life.
That's why you're here.
Because I have seen a lot of people really burn themselves out, and ultimately, when you get down to it, it's just a TV show. It's not worth destroying your life over.
Very good. Hi, thank you for countless hours of joy and fun and laughs and tears.
Oh, thank you.
Regarding the ending of 6 Feet Under, I still haven't quite forgiven you about Keith, which is something that I still have goosebumps about and kind of a broken a little bit when I think about it.
Yeah.
But still, let's go beyond that. And I wanted to ask you a question, maybe a technical one, but it has to do with the plotting of each season. How much did you keep from the closing? Because this idea of containing everything in one season but coming back, you said that you had like 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks of before shooting. But how much of the threads of the previous season you had to build up, if you remember, to build up the new one, and how long did you have to not only start plotting the season, but the arc of the season, and mainly the theme of the season? Like, I was remembering about the Lily Taylor character, which was like drawing a lot of hate towards her, but at the same time was a great catalyzation of everything that was happening in the show. And how much of those kind of characters did you live from one season to another, knowing if you were coming back or not, and how early you did know that you were coming back, and how much could you keep from that, and did you have to close with each season? I don't know if you did too much.
Well, after the second season, we pretty much knew we were coming back every season as long as we wanted to. I always just tried to make it feel like it was a satisfying ending to that season. There may be things that weren't completely tied up and we would address them in the future, or it didn't feel like the right kind of show to have a big cliffhanger. It just felt like you wanted a sense of like, okay, that's the end of this chapter, you know, and then the next chapter that you have to wait 9 months to see may have some of this stuff in it, and they may be reacting to things that happened in this. There may be some things that get tied up in the first few episodes, but for the most part, it was instinctive for it to did it feel like a satisfying ending, but not like a totally final ending.
Hi. Oh. Me? You? Who? Me? Hi. Hello.
Okay.
Thank you for making 6 Feet Under. It's one of the greatest TV shows in history. I think you've heard that a million times in the last 20 years, but it's the truth.
Never gets old.
I'm still in love with Nate. I was watching him and I was like, whoa, I still feel the same way after all these years. So I'm in a creative crossroads at the moment because I've written a screenplay and it's in pre-production. And I had this first important meeting with the producer, and she threw me this question. She's like, would you consider making this into a series? And it's something that in my head, it was already kind of brewing, and suddenly having someone say it out loud makes you, it puts you in a very interesting place, because you're already thinking, okay, this is going to be shot in the next 2 years, but wait, it actually can become a series because it has all these rich characters and all these complex stories. So what advice would you give to a screenwriter? When do you choose, okay, I'm gonna stick to the plan and turn this into a feature film, or I'm gonna take a big risk and stretch it into a series?
My first thing was if you just had to answer from your gut, which do you want it to be?
Both. No, it could be a really cool series. It would be it has the meat for it.
Is it in pre-production as a film now?
It's in the zygote stage.
Uh-huh.
It's written, it's ready, but it has I think it has the meat for it to develop into something further.
But do you have means for production? Do you have people who want to invest in it?
Yes.
Would you be able to have those people invest in it as a series as well?
Probably, yes.
Then I think it's a tough choice. If both options seem like they could lead somewhere,
Yeah.
I would say, just really dig deep in what you really, really feel deep down in your heart, and go with that.
I want to make a movie. Yeah. That's the plan.
Well, there you go. That's
Yeah.
your answer.
But I want to do everything, but I don't know. I'm a Pisces, so I want to do everything. Thank you. And thank you. All right.
Hi. Thank you very much for being with us today and for everything. Here I am.
Okay.
And for everything you have given to all of us. Regarding 6 Feet Under, one of the things that always amazed me was the consistency of the show, which was already brought up. And specifically the consistency not only in the characters, but the relationships among the characters. So for example, relationship between character A and character B, but also how characters see, interact with A and B and with regards to their respective relationship. So I am a mathematician, so I appreciate very much how consistent everything is. My question is, how did you ensure this consistency? Did you have a mathematician to do your work for this?
We did not have a mathematician. I spent a lot of time as a graphic designer, so maybe somehow my knowledge of shapes and geography and points connecting with each other came into play in ways that I'm not aware of. I don't know. It's just instinctive. Again, I have to say it's it's so great to have 6 other people in the room with you who can bring their history and their ideas into the mix, so that then you can pick and choose what feels like the best option, the most organic option, and the truest to the characters in the story option.
I think we have time for one last question, unfortunately.
Okay. Hi, here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a lot of lights.
Yeah, I know. My question is, in 6 Feet Under, what made you take the decision to show dead people in another dimension in this way?
You mean when like the dead people are talking?
Excuse me?
Do you mean like when, for example, Nathaniel is there talking to Nate?
Yeah. How do you show them? I mean, you have a lot of options to show dead people, right?
Right.
Like not the opacity or like a light or something, but you choose to show them in this way. So what makes you think that?
I never thought of them as ghosts.
Okay.
I thought of them as the memory and relationship that they had with the living person they are talking to. Like it's in Nate's head, whatever Nathaniel is saying to him. I never thought of them as actually being there in some sort of limbo between life and death. So thinking that, I thought, well, you just shoot them like anybody else. You just shoot them like the other characters. Because I was afraid if we made them, you know, misty or special effecty, it would somehow make it less interesting.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Like weird.
Like weird. Like, why are they doing that? Why can't he just talk to the guy?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you. We have time for one more? Amazing. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. In your series, in 6 Feet Under especially, but also in the later ones, there are a lot of oniric scenes where people are dreaming or they are having projections, hallucination, drug visions, even apocalyptic vision in here and now. So. This seems to be a very you thing. So why so many visions?
Well, I mean, I read a lot of magical realism books. I remember 100 Years of Solitude, and I just like, I have a very active imagination, and I also have a very active dream life. Although as I've gotten older, my dreams have gotten much more boring. It just feels like a way to tell what's going on in a character's mind and psyche without necessarily having them talk about it. And as an audience member, when I see that in films and it's done well, I really appreciate it and I like it. So I guess that's why. It was never a conscious choice, let's use fantasy sequences. But I mean, even in American Beauty, there are fantasy sequences when she's on the ceiling and the rose petals are falling down, and I guess because it also feels really cinematic.
Well, thank you so much, Alan. It's been such an honor and
my
a pleasure
gosh,
to
thank
have
you
you
so
here.
much. It's been really great to be here. Thank you guys so much.